He was born weak, but after being taken in by the strongest SS rank magician, with nothing but determination, he trained endlessly. His hands bruised, his body broken, but his spirit unshaken. Years passed, and the boy who once couldn't cast a single spell became a force to be feared. Yet even his master didn't know. Hidden deep within him was a dark magic, powerful enough to shake the world. It all begins in a ruined city, where a woman finds a boy named Lloyd staring at something. It's not revealed yet what the boy is seeing, but the woman believes that with this kid on her team, she can win and defeat the Demon Lord. She lets go of her emotions and hugs Lloyd, who's still completely spaced out. Shortly after, she brings him to her house and shows him that she can summon fire from her hands using magic. This is the first time Lloyd witnesses something surreal like this, but the woman still tells him to replicate what she just did, or else he won't be getting any dinner. Without any instructions, knowledge, or anything at all, the boy tries, and by the end of the day, he actually succeeds in summoning a tiny ball of flames. The woman is impressed, but not enough, and she literally burns the boy in flames, telling him he still has a long way to go. The next morning, she teaches Lloyd how to summon water by kicking the ground in a certain way, and Lloyd does it on his first attempt. But he only manages to make the ground wet, so the woman isn't impressed and punishes him by drenching him in a pool of water. She also teaches Lloyd wind magic, and as their training continues, in just a few months, Lloyd masters ice magic as well, and manages to create an ice statue that looks exactly like the woman. Lloyd, who now considers the woman as his master, believes that he's finally managed to impress her. But the woman still isn't satisfied, as she believes that the boy lacks power. To show him the difference between their strength levels, she uses her magic to make the statue grab Lloyd, then increases its size before destroying it. Realizing how powerful his master is, Lloyd becomes determined to work even harder and continues to train restlessly. One day, his master drinks too much alcohol and falls ill because of it. Lloyd surprisingly heals her in an instant, indicating that she's taught him healing magic as well. She hugs him for healing her, but she claims that it's still not enough to impress her and immediately tells him to go do more magic training. After several months of training, Lloyd's master is seen holding a grimoire. She's worried about something and is caught off guard when Lloyd enters her room. The grimoire falls from her hands, and as Lloyd picks it up for her, something triggers, causing the boy to faint. This phenomenon makes his master realize that Lloyd has the potential to become the chosen one too. The way she phrases it makes it seem like she is also the chosen one, but I'm not entirely sure. Regardless, she doesn't want Lloyd to make the same mistake she did. She doesn't want him to grow overconfident in his abilities, so she kisses him on the forehead while he's asleep, putting a spell on him that I'm guessing limits his powers. The next morning, she tells Lloyd about the term white mage. According to her, Lloyd too is a white mage, and mages like him generally perform helpful magic for the betterment of others. In any case, she gives Lloyd the task of using his healing magic on an apple tree to make the apple bigger. Lloyd does that, but his master demonstrates how she can effortlessly make the entire tree fill with apples. Later at night, during Lloyd's magic lessons, he gets interested in a specific term called ancient magic. But his master tells him that he doesn't need to learn about such a thing, as it went extinct centuries ago. She teaches him more complex magic, like space magic, which allows the user to unsummon and summon items at will. The training continues, and when Lloyd's master thinks she can take his training to the next level, she blindfolds him and brings him to an unknown forest full of monsters. She hands him nothing but a small kitchen knife and tells him to survive using magic, then return home within a week. Wishing him good luck, she takes off at the speed of light, leaving Lloyd scared for life. Seconds later, a wolf monster enters the scene and chases Lloyd all around the forest. He manages to escape by climbing on top of a tall tree and wonders what he should do. Using his space detection skill, he locates his master's house far north from his location, then begins his journey there on foot. At night, Lloyd uses healing magic to ripen wild fruits, which he eats for dinner. He hides inside a small cave and starts working on a magic circle that might help him increase his physical strength. He creatively modifies all his spells so they can boost his base stats upon activation. The next day, as he ventures through the forest, he accidentally enters the queen spider's nest. As the spider attacks him, he runs in the opposite direction, and, by activating one of his modified spells, increases his speed by at least 10 times. In that one sprint, he reaches his master's home and faints at the front door from exhaustion. She opens the door and, with a smile, welcomes him back home. More time passes, and Lloyd grows taller. He gains more freedom to explore his master's house, and one day, while cleaning her study room, he comes across a book about cities. He gets interested in it, as he's never experienced living in a populated place. In the meantime, his master starts experimenting with various things and makes him her personal apprentice, not allowing him to get a sound sleep for weeks. On this fateful day, the master wakes up and walks to the rooftop to meet Lloyd as usual. Her intention remains the same: grill him severely until he can no longer walk. However, by the time she gets to the room, he isn't there. She sees that he was last reading a book and she looks at it. On the other hand, Lloyd finds his way into the city. It seems that is his first time getting into the marketplace, and he can see several people. The crowd there amazes him. He barely even knows that there are that many people around him. It is amusing to say the least. He doesn't have a mission, and he just hangs around. As he stands there, a flyer hangs on his face. He assumes it was just the breeze, but it wasn't. It is actually quite intentional, as a man had thrown it at him. He picks it up and reads that a team is looking for an adventurer. Since he has nothing to do at the moment, he decides to go there and see what is happening. When he gets there, he sees they are having an adventurer party. The team is fighting with a monster, and they are injured. The leader of the team is a hero named Alan, and he commands his mage to cast the recovering power. The mage immediately casts the power, and the fight continues. She also uses her power to bind the monster, so Alan can defeat it. Alan defeats the monster, and the others go there to hype him up for his good works. Lloyd is bored of the entire scene, so he walks away. Outside, the villagers talk about how great Alan is, and how he had just defeated the Cyclops of Abatuf Castle with his team. The adventuring team gets to their lodge, and Alan shares the money they had gotten. He gives Lloyd a token, and Lloyd takes it without complaints. He tells Lloyd that the money is his portion as a D-ranked adventurer, but Lloyd isn't bothered. He just walks away without complaining. The other adventurers wonder why he is that proud, and doesn't even speak. Alan in his pride says they don't have to worry about him because white mages aren't even important in quests. They are only there to increase the pride of the party. Lloyd hears this, but he isn't worried. He locks the door behind him and walks away. Meanwhile, his master receives a visitor at home. The visitor is the same man who had thrown the flyer at Lloyd earlier. He tells her that Lloyd had joined the hero's party, and his master is glad about that. She doesn't have an issue with whatever he does with his life, as long as he doesn't get proud. The man asks her if she still regrets what happened to her, and she says she doesn't want it to repeat itself again. He reminds her that the demon lord wanted to self-destruct with the book if she had let him do that. They recall the day of the fight with the demon lord. Everyone had died, and they saw Sybil stand up from the crowd and use the ancient magic to revive everyone that had died from the battle, even at the expense of his life. At the moment, the hero party are having another fight, and even before the fight starts, everyone hypes the team up and says great things about them. They are all sure that the party will be winning the fight as usual. Without wasting any time at all, Alan finishes up the battle and returns home to a team screaming his name and pride. When they get home, the mage of the party, Sheena, takes it upon herself to read more because she feels they can get better. As she reads, Alan comes to meet her and wonders why she is taking time to read. She says it is because she feels their defense is getting weak. He doesn't feel the same. In fact, according to him, he is getting stronger. She complains that she hasn't seen him train again for some time, and he proudly says he has no reason to train because he is simply unstoppable. She looks at him without saying a word. That evening, the soldiers at the riverbank get attacked by a golem, and they are all killed. The country immediately sends someone to Alan to inform him of the new mission, and he accepts the mission to kill the golem. He goes to the river with his team, and Lloyd uses his power to find out the location of the golem. By the time they attack the monster, they see another monster standing with a staff. Lloyd warns that the monster is a demon race, and his power is in the staff which he is using to control the golem. Alan asks a member of the party, Lulu, to throw her arrow against the demon, which she does, and he also commands Mia to set out to fight, and she gets ready. He plans to forge ahead and fight the golem head-on, but Lloyd thinks it is a reckless attempt. He says he hasn't gauged the golem well and knows his strength, let alone weakness, so Alan should calm down. Alan reminds him that he is the leader of the party, and he commands the team. Alan runs to fight, but feeling protective, Lloyd goes faster than him and pushes him from the golem. Alan pushes Lloyd away and attacks the golem, who dies immediately. This shows that Lloyd's prophecy of the situation was wrong, and he isn't good. By the time they get home, Alan complains that Lloyd hadn't done anything for the party since he joined and had left all the recovery and healing work for Sheena alone. Because of that, he should leave the party. Lloyd admits that they may be right and he is indeed weak, so he leaves as the other members of the party celebrate the good riddance to his rubbish. For 3 days, he tries getting another party to join to no avail. After another disappointing no from a party, he overhears a lady screaming that she needs an unaffiliated white mage and she needs it as soon as possible. The guild attendant asks her if she wants Lloyd. She turns to Lloyd, asks him if he is unaffiliated, and when he says yes, she drags him away and runs with him. What does Lloyd's future say? Will he eventually know how strong he is? Lloyd wanders around the city, still feeling sad over the fact that he was fired from his party by Alan. He recalls Alan's accusations, where he said Lloyd is a useless white mage who only hides behind their team and isn't useful at all. The only thing he's good for is healing, and even Sheena can do a better job at that. Lloyd asks Alan if he really thinks he lacks skills, and Alan doesn't bother replying, telling him to think whatever he wants and leave already. As he walks away, the girls, except Sheena, loudly express how glad they are that this loser is finally out of their team. In any case, Lloyd goes to the center of town where he comes across a fountain with a statue on top that looks just like his master, and it makes him miss him even more. On the other side, a group of adventurers are on their way to raid a bandit territory. This is an A-ranked quest, so they need to proceed with caution. The ginger in their team, Crumb, is visibly upset for some reason and has lost all motivation to do the quest. Regardless, they begin their attack, striking before the bandits can counter. The mage in their team, Silica, chants loudly before activating her spell, and one of the bandits, noticing that flaw, tells his comrades to attack the adventurers only after the mage is done chanting. They move forward while shielding themselves, and when Silica gets tired after chanting, they attack. But the archer in the adventurer team, Cross, has Silica's back from a distance, and he pierces all of the bandits with his arrow in one shot. It seems their party is pretty balanced, as even the swordsman in their team, Yui, who's also the leader, can hold her ground comfortably. Even when she slips up, the tank in their team, Daggers, protects her using his shield. Crumb uses her magic to physically enhance Dagger's strength, and with that boost, he overpowers the bandits, helping them win the battle. The boss of the bandits panics, looking for a way to escape, but before he can do anything, Yui finds him and tells him to surrender without resisting. The boss demands Yui explain exactly who she is and why they attacked them out of nowhere. That's when he notices the gold pendant on her neck, a badge that signifies she's an S-ranked adventurer. And it's not just her. Everyone in her party is S-ranked, which means they're kind of a big deal around here. The boss bandit has one last card to play. He believes that even if they're all S-ranked, they won't be able to beat what he's about to summon. Using his staff, he activates a summoning spell, and a giant golem rises from the ground. Against this golem, magic is going to be rendered useless, so Crumb and Silica, 2 out of the 5, can't do anything. The archer, Cross, also doesn't think his arrows will deal much damage, so only the tank, Daggers, and the swordsman, Yui, can fight properly. Yui, as the leader, confidently charges first and hits the golem with her sword with all her strength, but the golem easily tanks it and is barely scratched. The ginger girl, Crumb, who's been out of it from the beginning, spaces out again and doesn't hear when Yui tells her to boost her strength. Yui literally has to scream at her to get her attention, and when she finally snaps out of it, she casts the physical enhancement spell. With the boost, Yui's power increases at least fivefold, and she slices the golem in half with one strike. With the mission done, they capture all the bandits, including the boss, and Yui approaches Crumb to talk about what happened earlier. Crumb apologizes for getting distracted and says she's no longer worthy of being called an adventurer. Yui understands Crumb's situation. Apparently, her worries are related to her sister, Sylvie, and Yui asks how Sylvie is doing these days. But before she can answer, the scene shifts to Lloyd, who's now on his third day of failing to get into any team. Lloyd overhears someone shouting at the counter, saying she needs a white mage, and it's actually Yui, who I guess has already kicked Crumb out of the team. Lloyd grabs the opportunity and tells Yui that he's a white mage. She doesn't even bother asking his rank and grabs his hand, dragging him to her party's base. She introduces Lloyd to the team and officially welcomes him, even though he hasn't agreed to join yet. Yui's comrades immediately realize she brought Lloyd here without explaining anything to him, which is something she usually does. Cross explains that the only reason they're in such a hurry is because they have an urgent quest, and without Crumb, they can't do it. None of them think Lloyd is a good replacement, and even Lloyd himself doesn't have the guts to prove otherwise, especially after learning they're an S-ranked adventurer party. Although he's already given up on himself, Yui hasn't, and she forces him to show his magic. Lloyd thinks he'll just let them down, but he gives it a shot anyway, and summons a staff using storage magic, which is enough to make them realize this guy might actually be good. Then, without even chanting, he physically enhances all of their strength. Nobody feels the boost at first, but Yui tests it anyway. With a simple flick of her sword, she slices through a tree like butter, leaving everyone stunned. Lloyd explains that he not only used physical enhancement, but also layered several other enhancements that massively boosted Yui's power. That seals the deal. Crumb is nowhere near Lloyd's level, but Lloyd himself still seems completely unaware of how overpowered he actually is. Lloyd explains that the reason he had invoked 5 different enhancement magics on them is because he assumes if he uses just one for a team of skilled adventurers like them, it will be mediocre, and they won't like it. He knows they are the highest ranked level of adventurers, and he just wants to impress them. However, seeing their stunned expression, he assumes that he was wrong, and what he had done was just mediocre. There is one thing about being talked down to. It is the fact that it completely reduces your self-esteem, and for him, his self-esteem at the moment is on the floor. He assumes he didn't impress them, and tells them he doesn't want to be a useless addition to them, so he walks away. At first, they are too stunned to speak. Yui quickly gathers herself and screams as loud as her voice can go, telling him to please come back. He returns to them to at least hear what they want to say. He tells them about where he is coming from and how the hero's team had sent him away because he was useless. Yui is shocked that he had even worked for the hero's team, but he tells them they don't have to be amazed because he isn't that good. Wow, that boy's self-esteem is in hell. He advises that they return to their former white mage because that is better for them. They tell him about Crumb. She is good and she worked with them. However, she has a sister, Sylvie, who was sick. Previously, she worked as an adventurer and still took care of her sister, but recently she had been very tired, and it is also affecting her work ethic. In their last fight, she got distracted and almost sacrificed the entire team. Even though they were all fine with her remaining with them, she is so concerned about them that she decided to resign. Normally, they can survive on adventures without a white mage. However, when they want to take an A-rank job, they have to get a white mage because they can't survive without one. Aside from the fact that Crumb was a great addition to their team, they also see her as a good friend. Yui says she is worried about her, and the others also express their worries too. Lloyd can see that they are indeed worried and wonders if they took her more as a friend than a teammate. And when they say yes, he thinks about how lucky she must be for having such lovely teammates compared to the ones he had before. He asks about the nature of Sylvie's sickness and finds out she is turning into a magic stone. He recalls a time when he was reading a book about magic stones with his master and asked if the condition was reversible, and she said yes. Seeing that he could help, he asks Yui to take him to Crumb's house. They arrive at Crumb's house, and she opens the door. They sit to have a conversation, and he asks her about the sickness. She reveals that she and her sister were both adventurers. One day, they took a mission, and while on the mission, Sylvie got injured. She didn't know what happened to Sylvie because she wasn't there and just met her injured. Lloyd asks about the nature of the sickness, and Crumb decides to take them to Sylvie's room instead. Upon opening the door, Lloyd can feel the entire magic power coming from that room. Crumb goes closer and removes the cover, which shows that Sylvie's legs and hands are already stone. She reveals that eventually, Sylvie will be covered in stone. Lloyd tells her he thinks he could heal Sylvie, but Crumb doesn't believe him. She had contacted several advanced mages and there was nothing they could do, so she doesn't think an ordinary white mage can do anything. However, Lloyd asks her if the injury happened in a cave, and Crumb shockingly replies affirmatively. He checks where the injury started and confirms that the invading magic power is causing the magic stone symptoms. Crumb still has many doubts about him, but he tells them that his master said it could work. Yui also advises Crumb to trust Lloyd, so she decides to let him give it a try. He goes for it and brings out his staff. He casts a powerful magic that makes him feel weak. He tells them that he has cast a magic that will reverse the magic power overflowing in Sylvie's body. The cause of the issue was the overflowing power, so if he could bring the power down, he would be able to heal her. He then casts a healing spell immediately. When he does that, Crumb looks at him in awe and tells him that the healing power he is using isn't a usual one. He admits that it is a different one, and it consumes more magic power. However, he insists that it is just an ordinary healing spell and continues. Yui asks Crumb what she thinks about the power, and Crumb can't help but admit that the magic is anything but ordinary. It is even amazing that Lloyd is casting two different magics at the same time, and still has the power and mental strength to sustain them both. Yui calls Crumb's attention to the fact that Sylvie's body is returning. She goes to hold her sister's hand as Sylvie returns to her normal self. They are all shocked and happy. Crumb is more than grateful, but she reveals she won't be able to return to the team because once her sister recovers, they will start adventuring together. She offers to take them out later to appreciate. She tells Lloyd that she is sure the team is safe with him, but he replies that he isn't a member of the team yet, and she is shocked that he still doubts himself. The party goes out for dinner, and Yui tells the others the crazy thing Lloyd did and how Sylvie recovered magically. Irrespective of how much she makes him feel good, Lloyd still thinks he isn't enough, which makes her tell him to stop being modest. She tells him that he has done so well, but he still doesn't think it is a big deal. He apologizes to the team that he couldn't get Crumb to return to them, but that isn't their worry yet. They want to celebrate first before thinking about the future. They start talking about what their future will be, and Lloyd thinks about the heroes' team and how they made him feel, compared to how he feels now. He asks them if he could join them, and they are shocked because he had earlier rejected them. They reveal that they also want to work with him, and he officially joins the party. I am so excited about this new team. Yui's team throws a party for Lloyd, their newest member, and Lloyd thanks them, gulping down food like he's never eaten before, prompting the others to ask him if he's actually never eaten decent food before. Hearing that the food of this town is bang average makes Lloyd question whether what his master has been feeding him was actual food or not. Yui asks Lloyd about this master of his, and he tells her that his master is a mysterious woman who taught him how to use magic. He spent several years with her in her Lord of the Rings-ass house, and there she only cooked him what grew naturally in her garden and the wild beasts that lived near the forest. Lloyd, of course, didn't enjoy his master's cooking, so he started making their meals himself, but never managed to get flavors like he's getting now, and that's why he's gotten so excited. Yui wants to know who Lloyd's master is, since she taught him such incredible magic. Silica assumes that Lloyd's master is also a white mage like him, but that's not true. Lloyd tells Silica that his master is more of a combat mage, and mentions how she used to experiment with magic, causing explosions very often. Silica is surprised to hear this since she's never heard of a combat mage being so good at support magic as well. Silica wants to learn from such an incredible person, but Lloyd instantly advises her against it, warning her that his master is very brutal as a teacher. But he then corrects himself before they get the wrong idea, telling them that his master is kind at times as well. Anyway, The group moves on to the next topic, and Yui wants to get to their usual strategy meeting. Lloyd is unfamiliar with this term, so both Cross and Daggers suggest they first explain to Lloyd what their next quest is about, since he won't understand anything regarding their strategy if he doesn't know what the job entails. Yui, however, hesitates to explain, claiming she's bad at it, so she asks Daggers to do it. But Daggers flat out refuses, reminding her that she's their leader, so she should start acting like one. But as Yui keeps on insisting, Daggers agrees, and once Yui brings out the quest notice, he explains to Lloyd that their next task is to defeat a pack of monsters that are destroying farmlands. Apparently, these monsters appeared out of nowhere and started trampling all of the farmland. Lloyd notices that Daggers didn't mention what kind of monsters are causing this, begging the question if there are several kinds of monsters. As Silica replies in the affirmative, Lloyd begins to wonder why this phenomenon took place. He's never heard of different types of monsters forming a pack, but Yui tells him to not waste time thinking about the reason, and to take action quickly, as it is their job as adventurers to help the farmers who are in trouble. Now that Lloyd's been informed, they move on to their strategy meeting, when Cross raises his hand, informing the group that he and Yui won't be much help against a pack of wolves. Apparently, Silica is the best suited when facing monsters, and Silica agrees, but at the same time, she's unsure because she will have to use wide-range attacks that consume a lot of mana. Since 3 of them are useless, Yui asks Lloyd if he can cast any offensive magic. Lloyd admits that he can, but at the same time, claims his magic isn't as good as the magic that combat mages can produce. Since Lloyd is useless as well, the only useful attacker in their team is Daggers, who comes up with the plan to open their attack on the monsters with Yui. He plans to team up with Yui and lure all of the monsters into one spot, and then leave the rest to Silica. And Cross's job as an archer will be to protect Silica and Lloyd from the monsters. As for Lloyd, his job is to use support and healing magic on everyone, a typical task for a white maid. Daggers states that they can figure out the rest on the battlefield, and concludes the strategy meeting. Silica expresses how excited she is that she will get to see Lloyd's support magic, but Lloyd himself isn't that excited, and he tells Silica to not get her hopes too high. Even though he's powerful, he undermines himself too much, so Yui advises him to be a bit more confident. As everyone in the group encourages him to do his best, Lloyd's mood lights up again. After the meeting, the group starts heading back to their inn, and Lloyd starts walking in the opposite direction as well. That's when Daggers stops him, telling him to come stay with them at the inn. Lloyd awkwardly brings up the fact that he's broke, but Daggers doesn't think money is ever going to be a problem since they are an S-ranked adventurer party. To help Lloyd, Daggers gives him a pouch full of gold and silver coins. But knowing Lloyd isn't going to accept this for free, Daggers tells him that he will be subtracting this money from Lloyd's part of the quest reward. Lloyd promises to work hard to repay Daggers' kindness, and then joins the group on their way to the inn. The next morning, the group gathers at the front gate, and Yui comes last, noticing that no one else is carrying any luggage. When she learns that Lloyd can use storage magic, she gives her backpack to Lloyd as well, and he stores it inside his other dimensional inventory. The entire group comments on how useful and convenient Lloyd's storage magic is, and Lloyd offers to teach this magic to them later. With that, the group begins their journey and enters a plain where mountains can be seen in the distance. According to Daggers, demons live beyond these mountains, so they must be careful since their quest location is nearby. They struggle to cross a wooden bridge, and Yui comes up with a plan to distract themselves from this scary height. She asks everyone a stupid question, and while everyone gives a silly answer, Lloyd the dumbass answers seriously, leaving Yui wondering if he's retired or something. In any case, she advises him to take things easy from now on, since always staying on edge is going to wear him out. While they are joking around the river, there is a black mage in the middle of the same forest, and she is casting black magic around the forest. They finish crossing the river, and they reach where they will be camping. They need their luggage back, and he brings out everything they have kept inside his storage. They are so glad that they have traveled really light, and that had made their journey so much faster. They begin setting up their camp. They set the room, get water, and also other things needed for their well-being. After a hard time working and stressing out, Yui is tired and she wishes to take a shower. She asks her party members if she could be excused to take a shower, but they still have other things to do. They have to get firewood and other things. As a result, she cannot go. Lloyd offers to help them get firewood, so she has enough time to clean up. She is glad about his suggestion, so she leaves with Silica. Lloyd arrives at the forest and picks wood. He sees the fruit that his master used to grow with her magic, so he takes it. He takes a bite of the fruit, and it feels so good. Before he could enjoy his bite, he hears a sound in the river. It turns out that a monster has attacked both Yui and Silica in the river, and they are fearful. They try to withdraw, but the monster is quite fast too. They reverse with their back, but Silica falls off when she reaches the end point. She tells Yui that they have to fight. Fortunately, Lloyd climbs a tree and sees them. He runs to rescue them fortunately. Before he gets there, they are covered up. He distracts the monster so they can get to the land, and he also throws their weapon, which he has kept in his storage for them, after which he gives them more strength to fight. Yui goes at the monster and cuts it into half. The other part is still strong, so she asks Silica and Lloyd to run for their safety. She releases a fireball, and even to her shock, the fireball defeats the monster at once. She is shocked that her fireball is so efficient, and that is all thanks to Lloyd's magic. She jumps and her towel falls while Lloyd is beside her, and what Lloyd gets in return for coming their rescue is a hot slap that shakes the entire river. They return to their camp, and Lloyd tries to teach them how to make storage, with his cheek red from the slap he had just received. He tells them they just have to imagine and do it, but they aren't successful. After a long attempt, they assume they aren't cut for it, but Lloyd insists he may be the bad teacher. Silica figures she could call storage and get it done, and when she does it, she succeeds. They realize they aren't like Lloyd, who could use magic without incarnations, so they use incarnations, and they succeed. They practice till night, and it was a fulfilling day. At night, Yui looks around the area, and Lloyd tells her that there are no monster around. She comes to sit in front of him and appreciates him for joining their party. He didn't have a party too, so he needed them. As a result, he doesn't think she needs to appreciate him. However, she understands that she had forced him regardless. He asks why she is so interested in that quest, and she calmly tells him that it reminds her of her hometown. When she was young, her hometown was attacked by monsters, and she was the sole survivor. She recalls how she saw bodies around her, and she imagined the town will be going through the same thing, so she has to help. She also considers that they won't be feeding well too. Lloyd suddenly sees that monsters are around. He shuts her up and asks her to wake the rest. They go to the forest and see several Powlerks around. They all wonder where the Powlerks are going to, and when Lloyd figures the answer to that, he signals to them to walk toward a direction. He knows that Powlerks react to noises, so he asks them to keep shut. As they walk, Yui mistakenly steps on a stick, and the noise calls the attention of the Powlerks, who start chasing them. They run as fast as their legs can take them, but they don't get far as one of the monsters jump ahead of them and stand in front of them. They are in the middle of danger, and they have to fight. They call storage and bring out their weapons, but before they could even fight, the monsters use their magic to throw away their weapons. To make matters worse, the monsters surround them with wolves so much that they can't move. They wonder what they will do, and Lloyd suggests that he could hold the monsters at a place while they fight. He invokes his magic and get the monsters stuck, so Yui takes her sword to fight, and they also get Silica's weapon back. Yui uses her sword to cut off all the wool holding them, and as she jumps to the last monster, Lloyd asks Silica to fight and Cross too. They all jump into the fight and they win. After they win, Lloyd feels bad that he had taken the control by commanding the team, so he apologizes, but they are fine with it, because if he isn't there, they would have lost the fight. They appreciate him for stepping up and taking initiatives, and he is glad that he is accepted at the place. They all return to their camp, and the next morning, they pack their things to continue their journey. They all invoke their storage and put their luggage so they can leave. However, Lloyd stands there wondering why there are Powlerks around and where they were going to. Yui calls out for him and asks him to come. He runs to them, happy that he has now found a party for himself. While everyone's asleep at night, Lloyd stays awake all by himself for guard duty. He doesn't have a phone to scroll through YouTube shorts, so he winds up thinking about dumb stuff like how weak he is, and that he should improve his skills to not let down his new, humble and kind teammates. He then thinks about his party's earlier encounter with demon spiders, and he can't help but notice that those spiders' behavior wasn't quite normal. The entire swarm of those spiders was moving in a specific direction as if there were someone controlling them. In any case, Lloyd thinks that he should be more careful from now on, so that if something does happen, he can avert any incoming crisis. Both Yui and Silica are having trouble sleeping, so they get out of their tents, and seeing Lloyd awake, they ask if he is intending to stay awake alone all night. Lloyd nods, stating that this is indeed his plan. Hearing that, Yui worries for him, revealing that he's been doing so for the past couple of days, and at this rate, he will end up suffering from sleep deprivation. That is why she proposes that they take turns from now on, but Lloyd refuses to do that, claiming he's completely fine. Also, he doesn't want any of his teammates to lose stamina because, in case of any emergencies, he believes only they are going to be useful. Besides, Lloyd claims that he's stayed awake at night like this all his life, so he's used to it, and tells Yui that since he's useless in all other stuff, this is the least he can do for them. Yui is sick of this self-unaware guy, and so she shouts at him, telling him that he's totally wrong, but before she can argue more, Silica stops her, knowing there's no point trying to educate someone who doesn't have a brain. They go back to their tents, telling Lloyd again that if he ever feels tired, he should let them know. Daggers and Cross also eavesdropped on this entire conversation from their tent, and they too worry that Lloyd's zero confidence will bring him trouble in the future. The next day, they go out for adventuring, and Lloyd scans the surrounding area using detection magic and confirms there aren't any monsters nearby. Yui is shocked to learn Lloyd knows this kind of magic, but Lloyd claims it's nothing special at all. Yui feels bad because Lloyd has been doing all the work himself, but she doesn't bother trying to tell him to go easy on himself because she knows he's too dumb to realize how much work he's putting in. Later at night, Lloyd is on guard duty again, and Yui can't help but wonder if Lloyd is doing all the work himself because perhaps he doesn't trust his teammates' abilities. This is a complete misunderstanding, but because there hasn't been any clear communication between them, this misunderstanding won't be cleared anytime soon. Silica, being more mature and smart, helps Yui understand that Lloyd must be overdoing it only because he wants to prove himself to them. This is the exact part Yui doesn't understand. Lloyd should already know that he's good enough to be on their team, and she suspects that he lived a life where he didn't think of himself as someone special. Speaking of which, she wonders what kind of life Lloyd has led under his mysterious master, and Silica believes that Lloyd will share that story with them one day in the future. Back outside, Daggers approaches Lloyd, telling him that he needs his help with something. Lloyd states that he needs to stay for night watch, but that's when Cross comes as well, saying that he will do it in his place. So Lloyd goes with Daggers, and Cross, who's left behind, hopes that whatever he and Daggers planned is going to work. Daggers takes Lloyd somewhere in the distance, revealing that he's made an alarm system that will ring when monsters enter the area. Daggers believes this alarm should be a good enough safety measure, so he tells Lloyd that he doesn't need to stay awake at night anymore. Daggers states that before Lloyd joined them, they used this system to handle night watch, but still, Lloyd wants to stay awake, telling Daggers that if he sleeps, his detection magic won't stay active. As he keeps arguing, Daggers has no other choice but to confront Lloyd, asking him if he doesn't trust his teammates' abilities. Lloyd is shocked that his teammates think something like that, and Daggers explains that Lloyd never lets them help him, so it's natural for them to assume something like that. Lloyd doesn't want to share his past experiences with other people who made him think he's useless, so he only tells Daggers that he's only giving it his all so that he doesn't hold any one of them back. Daggers, in reply, tells Lloyd that he should go ahead and hold them back because that is part of teamwork. In a team, a single member is supposed to have weaknesses, and that member should rely on their companions to cover for those weaknesses. Lloyd has never considered relying on anyone before, and now that he understands that, he goes back to the campsite with Daggers and goes to sleep with a smile on his face. The next morning, he deliberately asks Yui to help him fetch water, and she is overjoyed to see that this idiot sandwich is finally opening up to his teammates. While they are working together, the rest of the group watches them and are glad as well. Somewhere else, a cloaked mystery man reports to his leader, Master Michel, living in a castle surrounded by a swamp forest, that he has deployed all of the magic stones at the given location. Once Michel confirms that no high-ranking adventurers are nearby and are away on other quests, his only worry is the hero's team, who still remains in the area. Hoping that the hero's team won't interfere in his schemes, he tells his subordinate to go inform their client that the time has come to achieve their goal. Going back to Lloyd's party, they are once again exploring the forest when Yui notices something strange. The others also notice how unusually quiet this entire area is, and Lloyd steps up, using his detection magic, discovering that there's a monster horde a few miles to their north, exactly where the farm is. Yui is still stuck on the part where Lloyd revealed that he detected monsters a few kilometers away, and can't believe he is this overpowered. But Lloyd, as always, claims that it's nothing special. This time, however, Silica can't help but reveal to him that his detection range is 10 times more than the average person in this world, shocking Lloyd. Still, Bro tries to defend himself, saying that he is a weakling. There's no point in debating with a brain-dead idiot, so the group moves forward and heads to the place where Lloyd detected the monsters. It's the same farm they have to protect according to the Guild Commission, and they can't believe the sheer number of monsters that are gathered there. They are there, and they can see the monsters. To the others, the issue is just the monsters, but to Lloyd, he's seeing something different. He comments that something is strange, and Yui, who assumes he's talking about the monsters, tells him she feels it too, but he's referring to something else entirely. His detection magic could only pick up monsters that were in this area alone. It's as if the other monsters he had been able to detect earlier were nearby, but aren't there at the moment. His party members consider what he said. Indeed, they have never seen a gathering of this many high wolves before, and to make it worse, they feel uneasy about what's happening there. Lloyd asks about the owner of the farm, and Yui informs him that he was injured by the high wolves and is currently at his son's place in the city for treatment. This is bad news to Lloyd because if something weird is indeed happening in that place, the best person they could ask, someone who would know how it all started, is the farmer. As they all look at the farm, Cross catches sight of something shiny. Maybe it's because he's an archer and has very sharp vision. His colleagues can't see what he's talking about. He points it out to them, but there's no hope of them seeing it. Lloyd casts an enhancement magic for his eye to see far, and finally, Lloyd sees what Cross is referring to. He tells them about the magic and asks if he can cast it for them. When they agree, he casts the magic on them, and now they can all see the black crystal shining in the middle of the farm. It looks like all the monsters are surrounding the magic, but they still can't confirm what exactly it is. Yui complains that she feels really uneasy about the black mist coming out of the magic and what it might mean. Lloyd suggests it could be orc magic. Since they don't know much about orc magic, he explains that it's a kind of spell used to control and gather monsters in a particular place. The question now is, who could have cast such a spell on that farm, and for what purpose? They wonder if someone is trying to kill them, but they aren't even important enough for anyone to go that far. To know the extent of the monster presence, Lloyd casts his detection magic again, and sees that several other monsters are heading toward the location. It's like a monster assembly, and not just high wolves anymore, but several other creatures. They can't possibly fight all of them alone. Cross suggests they retreat, but Yui refuses. She doesn't want to risk the entire farm getting destroyed by running away. At the same time, she knows she can't defeat all the monsters by herself. Dagger reminds them that the monsters are almost there, and if they try to leave now, they'll just get attacked. And during the fight, they might drag the neighboring village into the mess. Their only option is to fight, and it's not even a choice at this point. Lloyd tells them he has a plan and that they can win. He asks Cross if he can break the crystal with his arrow, but Cross says the orc is too far away. He can aim for it, but he doubts he can break it. Still, they decide to give it a try. He asks Cross to ready his bow, and then casts enhancement magic on Cross to ensure he can break the orc's crystal. When Cross releases the arrow, something strange happens. It shoots straight at the target and shatters it. Even Cross is surprised. He knows his arrow shouldn't be able to do that. He asks Lloyd what he did, and Lloyd reveals that he cast enhancement magic on Cross, his bow, and his arrow. Cross is shocked that Lloyd can do that, but as always, Lloyd downplays it and insists it wasn't a big deal. He says Cross only succeeded because of his precision. By the time they turn back to the High Wolves, the wolves are already attacking each other. The others are shocked, but not Lloyd. He expected that to happen once the magic stone was broken. However, he also expected the destruction of the stone to be enough to send away the approaching monsters, but it's not. The other monsters are already almost there. As they arrive, the group realizes just how serious the situation is. There are so many monsters. The plan now is for Silica to attack them. Silica stays at the front line as the monsters rush toward her. Yui asks if it's time to fight, but Lloyd says no. They trust him enough that even as the monsters get close enough to pounce on Silica, they don't disobey his word. When it's time, he casts enhancement magic on Silica, and she unleashes her fireball. The fireball is enormous. It wipes out the monsters. Silica turns to ask what Lloyd did. Well, he had cast 3 spells at once. He asks her if she can manage 4 more fireballs before switching to wind magic. She says yes, so he moves to Cross, who is also waiting for his enhancement. Lloyd holds Cross and connects their consciousness mentally. He speaks to Cross through their minds, and Cross hears him. He directs Cross's mind toward the monsters flying above the flames, so Cross can strike the ones that try to escape the fire. Once Lloyd is done with Cross, he returns to Silica. He asks if she has the strength left to cast wind magic, but she admits she's running out of energy. Lloyd touches her and transfers his mana to her, so much that she feels stronger while he's left exhausted. She apologizes for making him overdo it, but he brushes it off, blaming it on his usual weakness and lack of ability. Silica uses her renewed strength to cast the wind magic. She extinguishes the flames, but this time, she's truly out of energy and completely spent. Before she collapses, her party members reassure her that they'll take care of the rest. Dagger and Yui step up to finish the fight. A few minutes later, the battle is done. Yui and Dagger return to the others. Yui thanks Lloyd for everything he did, but of course, Lloyd insists it wasn't a big deal. Yui, used to his low self-esteem, no longer bothers trying to argue with him. As she tries to rest, Lloyd tells them they have to return to the city. She complains that they're exhausted, but he explains that he believes all of this was orchestrated by Ishtak and that they've walked right into his trap.